Valve's fake economy that was worth 6 billion just crashed. The recent CS2 skin update just caused prices to drop harder than a silver in a global elite lobby. Millions of dollars gone. Poof. But the secret truth is, this market was never real. It was all a simulation, an artificial economy where people LARP as hedge fund managers over JPEG knives in a game. And today, that simulation is broken. So what exactly happened? Valve has essentially pushed an update where they have changed the elastic supply of certain rare items like knives. This increase in supply only means one thing: demand goes down. They have now made it where you can trade up your red items into gold ones, which was never possible before. The only way to get them was to either unbox them or buy them. Inventories worth 1.2 million are now worth 200,000. And now Valve have made it so you can print butterfly Doppler knives like the Federal Reserve. But this is exactly why the economy was artificial. Valve controls everything. They control who trades, they control the drop rates, they control every single bit of it. There is no system in this situation where you have any control. Us as players never actually have the ability to control the prices of our items. Unlike the real life stock market meme, Valve are actually the Bog twins.
Yes.
Bogdanov, he did it.
Il bought.
He went all in.
Dump it.
But this does make sense. The CS market has only ever really gone up, in the grand scheme of things. If this was a natural market, it would have corrected itself years ago. It just had a god hand at play here, in the form of Gaben. As any economist would actually tell you, any market that only ever goes up is not a market at all. It's a bubble waiting to explode. Even though the community always finds ways around it, Valve's market is still technically a closed system. But assuming that it's not, and we actually model this using a real life stock market scenario, if we use the Black-Scholes-Merton equation, the one that models actual option prices, we can find the probability that this continues to go up. Assuming 80% volatility previously, it had a 98% chance of continuing to go up. But a little bit like crypto, Valve and its skins market is a bubble economy based upon the ownership of assets. Now I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to use a simplified toy model for the people that don't really care about maths, and then I'm going to do a more advanced version for those that do. Based on things like crypto, the hazard percentage is around 10 to 20%, so if we go for 15, after 10 years of essentially the high-end skins only ever increasing in price, that means its chance to pop was around 78%. Now obviously this is not going to be perfect, there are skins that have gone down in price and there have been drops before, but in the grand scheme of things, this is what we're looking at. If you can't be arsed with the nerdy stuff, please feel free to skip this section. I understand, it won't hurt my feelings, but I am going to try and model this a little bit more accurately using the Ito formula, which is the backbone of the Black-Scholes-Merton equation. Now, obviously, if we only look at 1 month in advance without taking any of the context into consideration, if we assume all the skins are an index fund and go up and down accumulatively, there's a 1.5% chance that in that month, the price will drop by 40%. The equation is technically memoryless, a little bit like when you put it on red or black at the casino. It's a 50% chance every single run. Probability does depend on what parameters we pick. If we decide to do this over a day rather than a month, it'll be even smaller still, which sounds reasonable with the 98% chance of going up that we saw earlier. But that's not what's happened. What's happened is essentially 119 months of growth out of 120. So when we actually model it that way, we can see that our chance of having that 48 to 60% drop to happen at some point within 10 years is 82%. So it's in line with our more simpler model. Now again, a real market still wouldn't do that full drop in just a day or just a month. It would still be very, very low chance for that to happen. It would probably happen over half a year to maybe even a couple of years. That's not to say that it can't happen, because it literally has, with the Wall Street crash of 1929. And what caused that crash has a very similar air to what caused the skin crash here with Steam. Steam skins were an artificial market bubble that were inflated upon massive speculation that had only really gone up over the last 10 years. So like I predicted, if this was a real inflated market where it's kind of just being forcefully kept high, it would have already crashed by now much sooner with smaller type drops, whereas this crash was so big because it was so artificially inflated for so long. The instant Valve introduced a new trade up route, this created discontinuity. Because of this, the probability that this stock goes up plummets to zero. In all senses of the word, it got bogged.
Dump it.
And there is physically no way to stop yourself from being bogged. There is no short sell option. You can't bet whether knives will go down. The skins market is no different to a casino where the owner just decided to change the value of the chips. These closed artificial bubbles are only falsely stable. As soon as someone comes along with actual power over the system, all of it comes crashing down. Now here is the problem with CS skins. Everyone essentially thinks of them as the new Bitcoin. They'll only ever go up, they'll only ever go up. Valve just bent those guys over and showed them what's really going up. And this, in my opinion, is the problem that Valve have now fixed. If everyone decides to hold and never sells, then the value is technically zero because there's no market. This is why technically billionaires don't help the economy. It's because they're holding all of the assets. And simply, that's why this change was implemented. Because knives now have less value, people now won't hoard them. For the reasoning of, oh, it's going to go up in price. They haven't, they've now gone down. Now people will sell them. There are cheap reds out there. Cheap reds that can lead to quite expensive knives. And because of this, it has caused those expensive knives to now not be worth as much. Because you can simply do a red trade up that's worth less than the knife that it gets. I personally think this was a really good change. Finally, people are able to get access to skins that have been artificially inflated for way too long, and these whales holding on to all of these skins have kind of got what they deserve. For years now, they have had the chance to cash out. They had 2000% profits on some of these knives, even more in some cases, and yet they still did not cash out just because they wanted more profit. Their own greed has consumed them, and now that it's crashed, they're crying about it. But if this was a real life stock, it would have 100% already crashed by now. The loss of money here is from their own hubris. They believed they were in control and that they were only ever going to make money, when it doesn't work like that, and it never has. Some of these people could have literally cashed out, retired on the beach, paid for their house, paid for their family, lived a life of luxury, and now they're sat tragically crying about how their fake JPEG knife just went down in price. It's no better than the NFT bros. And I think the main point I want to make here is that these people were collecting skins not to collect the skins themselves and build up the inventory, they were doing it just to make money. So ultimately it just comes down to a bad financial decision on their part. What they had was essentially a winning lottery ticket, and instead of cashing that shit out, they just framed it on the wall for nostalgia purposes. Wall Street wouldn't care if you decided to hold onto a stock and it fell down. It's the same thing here. You gambled, you lost. If gambling from the loot box wasn't bad enough already, they continued to gamble, hoping it would forever go up, so that they could squeeze the money out of some poor sod who just wanted a knife later down the road. Now, that person has the ability to get that knife, for a much cheaper price and a much fairer price. And this is ultimately why it's good. It means people can actually collect these things again. They can collect every skin that they want. They can customize their inventory loadout as they please. Some certain skins are still going to be really, really rare, and hence higher in price. But those people who are willing to pay for it can get it now. In my opinion, this was a really good course correction for the CS2 skin market. People who collect skins just because they look good, or it's because that's what they want on their weapon, aren't going to be affected by this because they never cared about the price anyway. The meta for the skins is now going to change, and it's going to shift towards the reds, and maybe even the pinks as well. Because you can now craft knives, it means that you're going to have to craft them out of reds, which means that the pool of reds is going to go down. Because the supply goes down, the demand is going to go up. So really, this is more of an economic balance on Valve's part, where there were way too many reds that were really low in price, and way too many knives that were way too high in price. The weight of the price is now going to be more balanced over the total distribution between gold and red. Look, I get it. The entire market is fun. You unbox a knife, it's loads of money, the dopamine rush is crazy. But this was a collective delusion. It wasn't something that only would go up in price. It wasn't something that would magically solve all your problems. It could, and has, just all been taken away all in one fell swoop. A single update. These prices will probably stabilize over time. There's still definitely a reason to open that case. There's still reasons to do trade-ups. There's still reasons to try and make money off the Steam market. At the end of the day, there is a hustle everywhere, and that's completely fine. People are allowed to make money, but it was so inflated to the point where people were just unable to get items that they wanted to. And you also have to see that there might be another monetary incentive for Valve here as well. Now, to put on the tinfoil hat a little bit, how many Valve employees that knew about this just went and bought hella reds like the day before? I feel like someone should check that, you know? At the end of the day, nothing beats that little slider going through that case opening, and you see it goes over some sort of red, pink, or a knife, and the dopamine rush is insane. And they haven't taken that away from us, so there's not really much to complain about. At the end of the day, us poor people can all lay back and have a great time just watching all these rich people crash the fuck out. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you for watching.